Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I'm Alexis, the dingbat who brought you Wormcoil Engine.
You're part of Beacon before I even became involved. I've been helping with Beacon for about 6 years now, but you were like episode 10. You were ground floor hopping on episodes.
Yeah. Back when it was Mad Olaf
Yeah.
and Brad. Yeah, I'm sorry. Just like, it's been so long. I'm just trying to think back to then. And that was like right after I was done with Wizards and I was kind of hot, fresh off the presses, right? Bringing all my excited energy back to the real world where I'm allowed to talk about it, right? You know, behind the scenes, You're not allowed to interact with people on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you had joined the Magic team because you won the first Great Designer Search.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that was
and probably a million years ago now, but
God, that was like another 10 years before that. That was I'm not even going to name years because that's rude. You don't ask about that kind of stuff.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Great Designer Search 1.
So you've got the raw power to just like come all the way out on top on a huge tournament. You've got kind of a long career. You're working on a new game that I'm sure you love dearly and work on all the time. So this is Once Upon a Galaxy. You're like the lead developer on that?
Right, that's right. Well, just to be clear, since developer can have a lot of different meanings,
yeah, that's true.
I'm essentially the director of engineering.
Ooh.
And then there's Matthew Place, who is the CEO president type, as well as I would say kind of in charge of design side of things. And then we've got Andrew Parnell, the executive producer, and then we have a few other names kind of helping us out that you've probably heard of. Yeah, no, we've got quite a team, and then of course a bunch of other people helping out as well with things like art and engineering. That group of people who actually bring more experience from the game industry, people from Hearthstone and Eternal and Magic Online and places like that.
Is it fair to say that when I reinstalled Once Upon a Galaxy, I had to uninstall it for a while because I was playing it a little bit too much.
I appreciate that.
But I came back to it and I saw like just like a whole variety of improvements everywhere, and I felt like maybe this is Alexis. Like this, I'm like kind of communicating with someone that is putting a lot of work into this app month after month.
Right. I'm super proud of the app, of the game, because I've obviously been working on it since day one, which has been 2.5 years or so. And just as the person in charge of the code base and doing a large chunk of the engineering, I'm working in the code day in, day out. And one of the skills that I like to bring to the table is my ability to just do the game design at the code level, right? I can propose solutions and make updates to the game essentially, at the code level and in real time while I'm sitting there playing with the code. I don't have to go back and forth with the design team to be like, have you tried this change to the UX, or have you thought about this change to the rules? I can just do it if I think it's correct. And obviously we had a lot more leeway with that early on when we were just experimenting and trying different things. But I do feel like it led to a much, much better final product. And it sounds like you've noticed a lot of that stuff as it's changed over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Just crazy amounts more polished than even like a year ago when I was last playing it a lot. And maybe it's even what you're talking about there is like, so much of these games, especially a game like this, is all the rules and the interactions between all the cards and like when a particular buff applies compared to a different buff. There was like this is a random example, and we'll go more into this later, but there's like a spell that like reduces someone's health to 1. And I remember using the spell in the past and it would reduce it to 1, but then other buffs would kick in. It's like, well, why did I bother doing that? But now it's absolutely just staying 1. You're taking that 1 and you're liking it. And I think like game design, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Should we attempt that? And interacting with it on the code level is kind of a fascinating lens to look at that kind of stuff.
It's been really great to be able to just express myself and my game design skills and what I want, and just have a chance to just kind of, directly manipulate the code like Play-Doh, right, in real time, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot like doing paper playtesting, really. It's like when you're at the paper playtesting stage of a game and you can just make the game do whatever you want at the snap of a finger, right?
Cross out a line. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's so powerful and it lets you try so many different things so quickly, and it feels so empowering, as opposed to if you don't know how to code and you want to make a video game, or if you're back at the stage where you're working with playtesters and like you have much bigger cycles and you can't just change things willy-nilly all day long, right?
Yeah. So why don't we dive into kind of introducing the game? We're going to go crossover style. So we're going to go step by step and maybe mix in a little bit of brainstorming with how we could steal these ideas from Magic, or at least relate them to Magic. So the kind of basis of this game is you're drafting a couple units, and then you're heading into an auto battle.
Yep. The most basic version of the game from a gameplay perspective is you draft 2 cards and hit go. Draft 2 cards, hit go. And the cards you've taken essentially automatically fight whatever cards your opponent have without really any sort of interaction from the player. So that's your simplest form. It'd be almost like in Magic if you had some sort of drafting format where every time after every 2 cards you took, you did some sort of mini game with the person across from you, or maybe even played an actual game of Magic or something. I don't know. Like the details are very fuzzy, right? But that would be the comparison, right?
There have been I've seen cubes that are attempts at like auto battle Magic, and this kind of speculation or ideas of like how you could mix playing and drafting and playing and drafting and playing and drafting like a little more easily. I guess in paper Magic, you do have kind of a limitation where like, one pair's games end after 3 minutes and another pair it's like a 15-minute game. So it's a little harder to keep that flow going.
Well, have you played there's a variation of Magic where you just like open a booster pack and you each take turns playing cards for free. You don't have mana cost. They don't apply. And, essentially whoever wins, right? You get to play 1 card a turn, and it goes back and forth until somebody has won.
Oh, okay.
And there's all sorts of variations on that concept that are very similar in concept. So you could easily have a game where you literally have like a cube or something where you open a pack of Magic cards, you take a card and you pass it. You take the next pack, you take a card, and then you just play a 2-card game of Magic against some opponent. 2 cards is enough to do a lot, right? Do you want creature plus Doomblade? Do you just want 2 giant creatures? Do you want something with sneak so you can... You probably start at lower life totals to make it interesting, right? Like, you start with 3 life or something. Yeah. Lightning Bolt becomes really good, but like... Or whatever, right? Lava Axe, right?
Maybe the life goes up over time, as we get larger decks, like you go from 3 to 6 to...
Sounds interesting. I'd like, honestly, take a random cube and see what it feels like. I bet there's some interesting results in there.
Something that's similar to that actually feels like it might be compatible with this is what I've heard called Type 4, which is just like normal draft, or, each person gets half a pile or whatever. And then it's just 1 card a turn, but you've curated the cubes such that like 1 card a turn is interesting, that you don't have too many cards that are duds, don't have too many cards that are kind of infinite combos. But you can play any 1 card, and maybe the piles you're drafting from get better and better as you go on. So you're getting like kind of an upgrade from like, starting with little guys like you might have in Once Upon a Galaxy. And then, well, I think Galaxy is especially good at, by the end of the game, your numbers are humongous. You've got 1,000 power and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could just have it so that you start with commons, or you start with 1 mana cards. Then you add in 2 mana cards, and then you add in 3 mana cards. That would actually come pretty close to simulating the kinds of curves that our game tries to do across the 5 rarities. We have common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary across the game. So every 2 turns, it goes up a rarity of what you can potentially find in your draft packs, essentially.
And a big part of the early game in Galaxy is kind of around like the individual stats of all the characters are really relevant. I was playing earlier today, and like a 3/3 with no abilities is like a decent consideration over the like 1/3 with an ability. Because early on, you really desperately don't want to lose. Because, after a couple losses, you're eliminated. We'll get into that too. But when the individual stats really matter, that also means that you get to do the opposite thing, which is like, how greedy do I want to be? Do I think I'm just barely strong enough that I can afford to take a useless unit that is great later?
Right. It's almost like in this format, the Magic version of format, if you're starting at 3 life, then obviously a 3/3 is way better than a 1/1. But what if that 1/1 gave you a token that you could cash in a later game for something? I don't know like what that would look like, but you'd have to figure out how you're carrying these advantages over across games of Magic for that to directly sound the same, right? Which is interesting. Like maybe there's, maybe artifacts stay in play, or maybe maybe gold tokens carry over, treasure tokens, right? Maybe you could have a 1/1 that created a treasure token, and like, sure, you lost the game, but next game you have a treasure token, so you're more likely to win.
Ooh, I like this. Yeah, what things carry over. That's a good drafted a rule too. That tokens carry over. So even making a 1/1 token, if it lives, it gets to
Right.
carry to the
Or maybe
next game.
global enchantments carry over, right? There's a lot of, you could have basically everything but creatures carry over, and that would create an interesting environment, right? Where do you make a sacrifice to take that card that, like,
Yeah.
a JMD Tome is a great example of a card that it maybe doesn't work in this environment exactly, but like,
Yeah.
why would you play a JMD Tome in this environment over a Juggernaut if your goal is to smash your opponent's face in as quickly as possible? Well, because the JMD Tome stays in play across your next game.
Which maybe you then snowball a little bit and then turn the corner, and now you're able to like just have way more resources, have even bigger things than you could have had otherwise. Yeah.
Um,
I think kind of the other fundamental thing when you first start in the game is you're kind of picking a captain. Is that the right term?
That's right. Yep. It's the first thing you pick actually is before you pick any characters, you pick a captain. You have a selection of 3 captains, and it's essentially your commander. It's a card that starts in play and is always in play and doesn't directly, fight. It doesn't attack or block.
Yeah.
But it provides some sort of latent power that helps you at some point during the game.
The contrast between like early game captains and late game captains is like maybe even more dramatic in Galaxy to me than in the Commanders and Magic.
Right, definitely.
Because early wins like matter a lot.
Right.
Whereas early in Commander, if you take 10 damage and by turn 3 you're taking a little bit of damage here and there, that doesn't really matter because later on someone's going to have 40 power worth of stuff, and that 3 damage isn't going to matter.
Whereas we haven't gotten in Galaxy, you start with 3 hearts and you lose between half and a full heart for every loss you take. Every time your characters, whenever your characters fight your opponent's characters, they essentially go down the line and fight one by one by one by one, and whoever has characters left over wins. Essentially, if my total stats are bigger than your total stats, that's a very, very, very incorrect way of putting it. But if my total stats are bigger than your total stats and the math works out and the fights happen, you're going to take some heart damage, or I'm going to take some heart damage. And those 3 hearts go very quickly, right? Like, that's not 40 life of a Commander game can often last for, it feels like a long time. It's probably not actually that much longer.
An hour and a half.
Because
oh, that's true.
It feels, it can be, that's the thing about a Commander game, is it can be a 2-hour Commander game and you're like, how many turns was that? 10?
Yeah.
I would say the average Galaxy game probably does go about 10 turns, is probably a good estimate.
Oh, okay.
You hit Legendary on turn 9 is when the highest rarity starts showing up, and certainly at the lower levels, a lot of games, or especially once you count in not winning, right? Once you count in losing.
Yeah, because you can get knocked out on turn 4 or whatever if you just lose it.
Which you can in Commander too, and that actually happens. People, miss a land drop and Devin Lowe says you're dying. Never happened.
Oh no! Is this a grudge from 10 years ago in a Commander game?
Bit, like, one of those Magic RD moments where like we're playing Commander and like this guy Devin Lowe was savage. I don't remember what deck I was playing, but like I missed my second land drop, and he's like, well, I know who I'm attacking. He didn't say it that way, but he had me out in like three or four turns, and I just never got around to playing the game. And I was like, wow, just don't turn your back on this guy.
I usually think of the like frontier justice in Commander as like if someone's behind, like someone misses 2 land drops, then they accidentally actually make it to like first or second place because everyone ignores them.
Exactly. And I've seen that happen enough that like I can't even blame Devin for doing this. Like I get it. Like take your shots while you can. It's just
maybe it's also the sign of respect. Like, oh, you have a stumble. I know you're the strongest deck.
That's what I'm going to take it as. I'm going to take it as a sign of respect, and definitely both towards my skills as a Magic player and a Magic designer.
And your deck building, and just top to bottom, every skill set.
Exactly. Everything about me.
Your ability to connive at the table.
Everything about me terrified Devin, so he had to take me out the moment he could.
Yeah. So I think this hearts thing, I want to think a little bit about this with Magic as well, because whether you want to call it like 6 hits or 3 hits or something in between, one of the kind of crucial things that makes Galaxy really fun to me are the giant numbers. And Magic, you can't really have 100 hundredths because they would just kill players in one hit. But when you have this sort of, you can take a certain number of hits, maybe you just say you can be hit by creatures 10 times and then you die.
Right.
Now the creatures can become humongous. And I think that actually might open up some different space in Magic where you could actually have, like, trample becomes a really different ability.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Stuff like that.
I was thinking about, the other option you could do in this is double life totals every round or something, right? So it starts mattering that they have to be bigger or you're not going to get there. Although that gets kind of tedious if you're like, oh, we both have a 1/1 left in play and we're at 1,000 life. Okay, guys, we'll be here all night. So yeah, maybe that one doesn't work.
So you're sort of thinking like, well, let's pretend that it works, but where like if we're both at 10 and then I get hit down to 6 and I don't hit you back, but then the doubling happens and you go up to 20 and I go up to 12.
Or it could just be a net, like you get 5 turns and whoever takes the most damage loses. So now you're balanced, right? So
okay.
If my numbers are similar to yours, then it's an interesting race. But if I come in with this 1,000, well, you better have a Doomblade or you're just dead. But at the end of the day, you still just lose a heart or whatever. You still lose like one of your lives. It doesn't carry over that 1,000 damage into the next game, hopefully.
What are you at? Well, I'm at negative 950. Well, what are you at? I'm at 12. Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess you win this one.
You got it.
Yeah, some way to get the numbers even larger. I think this might like refactor all of Magic numbering if you did this. Like suddenly 5 drops have to be like a 10-20 in order to be a good enough creature. But big number's good, right? I don't know.
I mean, 10 like that's not even that big, right? A 5-drop being a 10-20 isn't really that much bigger than what you can do in Magic, right? You can get 8/8s for 5, at least in green, and so
yeah.
And I was actually going to say that about Galaxy's numbers is it's kind of the same thing, right? You get up to Legendary and there's a single Legendary that is a 50-50 and it's a vanilla 50-50. It's Nessie. And then other than that, like I think the biggest numbers on Legendaries are like 20 or 30 naturally. They're not very big, right? They're not that scary, right? By themselves. It's not. And yet games of Galaxy often end with numbers in the hundreds or thousands or even exponential, scientific notation, right? So how do we balance a game? How can you have a game that's balanced at numbers like that? Well, you do exactly what you just said for the Magic thing is you just, at the end of the day, were your numbers bigger, okay, it still converts back down to just a loss instead of carrying over permanently, right?
And you have the equivalent of like a death touch or something like that, where a tiny creature can fight a big creature and survive.
And we have those things, like you were talking about the Shrink Tea at the beginning, actually, is very much the same concept of making something could be huge, but then it'll just die to anything.
Oh, I love that card now. Most improved.
It's interesting that the scale comes from doing broken things, which is a lot like EDH, right? Yeah, sure, I could play a vanilla 10-10, or I could put an aura on it and make it a 15-15, but like, what am I doing? I should be casting, draw the entire deck, and then put something out that says everything gets +X equal to my hand size and attacking you for 1,000,000, right? Like that's what people like to do. Some people, at least.
Yeah, it makes you feel more of a genius when things combine to be 1,000 rather than just drafting a unit that's 250.
And spoiler, if you like that kind of gameplay, you'll probably like Galaxy, because the game really is about finding the combos and chaining your cards successfully along so that you've combined your resources across the game and your combos across the game, whichever one is more appealing to you as a player or both. And at the end of the game, I've got this 1,000 or this 10,000 or whatever, or I did some other broken thing where I got a bazillion treasures, or I had infinite summons, or whatever cool thing you've decided to do that game.
Yeah. I mean, this wouldn't really be possible, but if you could imagine, maybe digitally in Magic, the top of your deck has worse cards in it than the bottom of your deck, is maybe part of the vibe that we're going for.
Right.
Like the 20th card in my deck might not be appropriate for the situation, but it's just objectively like a very powerful card. And it's up to me to like roll with the punches and say, well, I didn't really want to be in toys this game, but I got an insane toys card, so maybe I need to like switch around.
You could totally imagine a variation of Magic where you bring 5 20-card decks and each deck has different restrictions so that they're increasing in power. And so you start with the first 20 cards. Maybe it's only allowed to be commons. Maybe it's only allowed to be cards that cost 1 or 2. Pick some sort of, power restriction that actually works. And then after 2 or 3 turns, you then shuffle in the next 20 cards, and then you shuffle in the next 20 cards. So your deck gets more powerful over time, and nobody gets to do the ridiculous broken thing on turn 2 because the combo, maybe they have Demonic Tutor, but they don't have the combo because the combo involves Yawgmoth's Bargain because it
Oh,
costs
funny.
6 mana or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah. Early damage matters because I only have so many hearts, but the deeper I can get in, the more shots I can take. There are some ways to like you can upgrade a unit to a higher tier, but a random unit from that tier. And doing that once is not likely to win you a game, but it might be very good, and it might just be good enough to let you do it a second or third time, and then now you're suddenly upgraded to like a way out of tier unit much earlier than normal.
you're making plays that are plus EV on average, even if the swings are very big. And
Yes.
I like to. You've identified right on the head, I think, one of the core philosophies of game design that Galaxy leans on, which is the way you play Galaxy is you put yourself in a position to get lucky as many times as possible, and then hopefully you get lucky enough times that you win.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that is you try to get lucky, and then you have to learn how to take advantage of the luck you find. RNG and luck is fundamentally central to Galaxy's design. We embrace the RNG. Every part of the game is designed to give you, plus EV plays, but very rarely obviously correct plays, or very rarely this play will work in every game. It's not like Constructed in Magic where you're like, I'm probably drawing Lightning Bolt because I have 12 bolts in this deck, so I can play as if I'm going to draw Lightning Bolt. You can't do that in Galaxy. You can't play as if you're going to get your legendary, right?
Yeah. The scaling that you have built up on turn 5, that you're way ahead of everybody on turn 5. If you keep that static, it's just going to fall way behind later.
Exactly.
All my units are getting +5/+5 every turn. This rules. +5/+5 doesn't matter once like someone has a 400 power unit.
It's tempo, just like in Magic, where sometimes your goal is to just be strong enough to win this turn so that you can live another turn and take a better shot later.
Yeah.
But the thing you're doing this turn isn't going to last forever because of how the scaling works in the game.
Yeah, and it is fun if you have been winning a lot. The lobby is kind of damaged overall. Like you think the life total or the heart totals are low. To say like, oh, I am actually going to go all in. I'm going to give up on a legendary strategy and just see if I can max my power right now, and maybe I'll finish off the scaling decks before they get too big.
You can absolutely bully the lobby around.
Yeah,
I've definitely had games and. With me in first, in turns 9 or 10, right when you're getting to legendary, which means, nobody actually got a chance to really do any legendary stuff. They just got bullied around by whatever ridiculous thing I did early on.
Yeah. I think it like enlivens a lot of cards that would be kind of irrelevant otherwise. Like the kind of mixture of cards that are like, that are able to shine early but not be useless later is really nice in Galaxy. And it's something that can be tough in formats like Commander, where cards that are good early, like that are just objectively like overstated creatures or whatever, are good for such a short window of time that they're just not worth playing whatsoever.
But imagine if your opponents were also generally guaranteed to have cards that were good early, and if you took combat damage 3 turns in a row, you lost the game. You would have to do something else early.
Yeah.
You're always in this kind of like back and forth for like.
Yeah.
Like just imagine kind of a version of Initiative or Monarch or whatever, where it's more like if you've taken combat damage 3 of the last 5 turns, you're dead. And so you have to keep up with whatever your opponents are doing. And so everyone's incentivized to play enough early game cards, even if they're not otherwise cards they would play. Like you got to play the Walls of Blossoms and other cards like that keep you alive to get to the big combos you want to do later, rather than just being, I'm going to tank your. You can play a 1/1 and a 2/2 and a 3/3 and attack me 3 times. I don't care. I'm at 34. Okay.
Sure. And you probably aren't just going to attack me. You're going to spread some of that out too. So I'm in no danger.
This would also, exactly. This would encourage some amount of teaming up, knock people out early, which would again encourage people to play cards that kept that from happening. You'd have a much different early dynamic. I don't know if it would be a better game.
And that's like a thing that I think is, pretty effectively understood in regular like draft limited and Magic. Like, I think it's really common for people in standard sets to have like their mid to low tier common that they draft all the time and that they really get a lot of value out of. And I think Galaxy has a lot of those pet cards as well, because you really need to win as often as you can. I guess the other kind of big thing about the units, which we've seen in some other games, but there's a unit cap. You have 5 total unit slots. If you want to pick a 6th unit, you have to replace one of your units with a new one, or just finding a variety of like kind of okay units like doesn't power you up, because you're replacing your, an okay unit with another okay unit does you nothing.
But conversely, it means that there's a certain threshold for getting caught back up to the current state of the game, right? It means that, let's say I'm really lucky and I find 4 overpowered units on turn 4. Well, you're going to get caught up to me eventually. Yeah. You're going to get your 4 overpowered units by turn 8 or 9. It means that I can't just, like you were saying earlier, I can't just lean on that early advantage and guarantee I win the entire game and beat everybody. I might beat some people around, and some people might lose some hearts or even get knocked out, but I'm not going to win the whole lobby with 4 early powerful cards, or 5 early powerful cards or whatever, because I can't build on top of that, right? I can't make it 10 powerful cards or 20, at least with characters. We haven't gotten to treasures yet, which is where this actually does take a twist. But the cards you draft directly out of the packs, the ones that you can just take out of the packs and play on your board, you have a limit of 5. And so you have to constantly be upgrading your units and replacing units with better units, or sometimes replacing units with what are in the moment worse units. Sometimes you will have one of the more common difficult decisions to make in this game is, let's say you have an uncommon and it started as a 1/1 or a 2/2, but it built up over the last several turns to the point where it's like a 20/20. Well, it's probably still on your board because that's pretty big for turn 5.
Yeah.
But you probably still need to be looking to replace it with something. You might replace it with like a 5/5 rare, knowing that that rare is going to get better in the next turn or two, or an epic, probably more like at that point. Something that's going to get better quicker and then quickly outscale the previous unit, or something that's going to give you some other sort of short-term advantage or long-term advantage because you're so far ahead, right? You've bullied everyone around with this 20/20, and you can afford to play a weaker card on your board that says in 2 turns some ridiculous thing happens or whatever, right? You can afford to play a quester that helps you find a treasure that will give you a power boost, or you can afford to play a unit that is small and doesn't win battles, but makes your shops better next turn, makes your next card you recruit bigger, things like that.
It's also just kind of nice in a complexity thing, because once a person's board in Magic is past about like 10 non-land permanents, your ability to track that like in a 4-player game or even in a 2-player game like really starts to go down. But with capping at 5 units is also nice for just saying like, we're going to stay focused. We're not going to, put people into overload every game.
It's actually really, really good for those decisions as well. One of the things we've tried to do with Galaxy is, how small can we make the decision tree and still make the game, a really good game and a really strategically deep game. This game, when you describe it on paper, like you take one card out of 3, you have 5 cards total, you fight, you go again, and you're like, well, how can that possibly be, a strategically deep game, right? That sounds one step above war.
Yeah. Did you see the good numbers or the bad numbers? Oh, I saw the good numbers this game, therefore I win.
And it turns out that there's a lot more rules to the game than that, but the fundamental structure of the game is take a card out of 3 or 4 later on, take a card out of 4, take a card out of 4, hit go. You can have 5 max cards on your board of the cards you take out of those packs, those 5 characters, right? And so we've tried to prove that you can have that limited decision space, and we've just made the decisions themselves so much more impactful and so much more interesting and have so much more combo potential that it turns out that it's actually a very deep game. But I like how you put it. It definitely lowers the complexity level going in, right? You don't have a bunch of stuff in your face on turn 1 or on turn 3 or 4, or even on turn 8. You just have the 5 units again, right?
It actually also makes me feel more attachment to my units, I think. Because I had this unit that I got on turn 8 that was like way over curve, and I still have it on turn 11 going into the end game. Like, oh, that's my buddy.
You can definitely get over attached to units, and that can, or your characters can very much cost you a game.
Yeah. Or I think there's another kind of aspect to that too. There's this pirate that I always draft, and Bunny, I think, that as long as you feed it a little bit, it can win fights and then grow and then grow and then grow. And then, like, if I can get that card started, I just worry about my other 4 cards because that will be a very solid use of space that will just continue to execute for me turn for the next like probably 5 turns. And oh, okay, and I have the support unit that I really don't want to budge on. I really only have 3 units I'm trying to replace. Well, what could I conceivably replace these units with? What would actually be an upgrade? Should I go for give me a random unit? Should I not do that? Should I just take a spell that's going to help me in the next battle? Like I'm only thinking about a couple units at a time that like is really grokkable. Like I can actually handle thinking about that. Like it's not so big that I, just have to kind of play by vibes.
If you're playing the game kind of at, level 1 or level 2 strategy, you've described it perfectly. You know kind of what you're looking for. You have a basic strategy, and at any given time, you've probably only got 2 to 3 units that you're actively looking to change or replace or upgrade. And the units you want to replace them with are a limited subset of what's available. So you can kind of focus yourself to whatever level you're comfortable with the game, and the game kind of respects that, right? The game works fine if that's what you want to do. If you want to draft mages because your first 2 cards were mages and you're just like, okay, well, I'm only going to replace cards if it makes my mage build better. I'm not going to think too hard about other stuff. The game supports that. You might not win every game, but you're going to have a lot of fun doing the thing you want to do when you do it, right? It's a very roguelite experience like that you can see from games like Slay the Spire or Balatro or any of those types of games where if you want to just play the game until the game lets you do the fun thing that you think is fun, the game's going to oblige and let you do it.
Yeah, the identity of your team is typically like quite strong. It might be based on type. It might be pirates, or it might just be, other things that are like making these units really combo off with each other. And in Magic, the amount of identity that decks have can really shift in different formats. Really powerful decks often don't have a ton of identity. But, commander decks often, people just build decks with, hey, give me the 35 best pirates, and that's my commander deck. And I am a big advocate if people are making their own cubes and stuff like that to like let us play really thematic decks that have a good identity. Because if you're only playing it once, that's what's going to make it really memorable. You're going to be like, oh, I remember when I drafted the life gain deck in your cube that ruled. I'd never really done a life gain deck in cube before. Oh, this is awesome. And Galaxy like kind of doubles down on that identity and makes it like most of the ways that you're going to win are because you're assembling a synergy that has a name to it.
It is actually a lot like designing a cube. Most of my favorite cubes are where they do have a lot of those interesting archetypes that you don't normally get to experience if you're just playing the best cards, right? If you're playing a typical legacy cube or a typical random 720 or 360 cube, a lot of people, at least for a while, like you said, it's just all the best cards you can think of in Magic. And so a lot of decks from that cube end up having the identity of, small red things or big green things, which isn't really a super deep identity. It's just powerful cards usually, right?
Yeah, it's not green elementals, which is like cooler in some way. Or at least that's what I'd argue. I'm not totally sure if it's cooler.
I do prefer to play cubes where there are stronger identities than that you can find in them. And I like to think of the best versions of those cubes as being ones where those identities intertwine and overlap in lots of interesting ways. So you might have the sacrifice deck be kind of an archetype, but you might draft the sacrifice elementals deck with a little bit of artifact matters, and that's going to play differently than my sacrifice deck because mine's based around vampires and has a bunch of early cards in Crusade, so I've got a secondary plan if that doesn't work out, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of like to think of Galaxy in those terms, right? You can draft pirates, you can draft treasure hoard, you can draft mages, but as you kind of get more exposed to the game's strategy, you start to realize, well, okay, sure, I'm only focusing on these 3 cards to go back to a previous example, but there are things that would cause me to change my mind about those other 2 cards, and now suddenly I'm half pirates, half mages, and I'm working back towards mages or towards summons, or I got a cool treasure that says do this. Oh, now suddenly hunt is really exciting, right? So those identities are definitely more malleable than maybe you made it sound at the very beginning of this conversation. But they're still strong identities. You still know that you're wafting among different
Yeah.
cool archetypes that have a lot of high power potential baked into them if you get the right combinations, right?
Yeah. I had taken like screenshots of a lot of my armies at the end of the game, and
Right,
like
right.
that to me that's a measure of like, oh, look how big the numbers are, but also like I remember these guys and I like them, you know.
Right.
uh
I have fond of this team, right? Yeah, we've
yeah, yeah. And I was scrolling through screenshots. I just happened to look on my phone from like a year ago or whatever when I was playing, and I had no attachment to them anymore, which is very funny. Like while I'm playing the game, I
yep,
absolutely love
yep.
them, and then like a year later, like who is this? Like, which I think is good. It means that I had such a great thing at the time that I'm like, no, I got to save this. Um, Maybe like taking pictures of fireworks, like.
Right, kind of, yeah, like it's a great example. Who really wants to go look at pictures of fireworks? It seems great at the time, but they're just not the same in photo.
Absolutely. Another kind of common thing to auto battlers, especially or drafty auto battlers, are getting multiples of units. Here in Galaxy, you don't ever have two of the same unit in your crew, like next to each other. So, but when you get like multiples of a unit, the unit kind of upgrades, right? So the first upgrade is basically free. Like you upgrade from bronze to silver, and then that doesn't even cost you a draft. Like you get a free draft afterward after you upgrade from bronze to silver. In a lot of cases, that means that this unit got very slightly bigger, and then I got a free draft. But there are a lot of game mechanics where if like your shop is upgraded, you know, when you get the silver version, oh, now the unit is actually much larger because your shop's providing much larger units than it used to before. So that silver upgrade kind of flexes between this kind of simple, like almost automatic thing. Like I see three choices, none of them are great. Oh, one silver, I'm just going to take that. I don't have to think very hard. Um, but sometimes if you learn the game really well, like, you're going to leverage silver.
Right. I'd say the closest comparison in Magic outside of draft would be cantrips. Silver cards are basically cantrips. They tend to be not always, but they tend to be very small effects,
Yeah, yeah,
very small spells that don't do a ton, but they draw a
yeah.
card, and they often, in a lot of decks that use cantrips, they often do some other thing that's relevant in a way that may not be apparent by just looking at the card. So you might have a deck where it's full of a bunch of cantrips and you have things that trigger on casting spells. So you start
Yeah.
building up spell triggers every time you cast your cantrips. Or you might have a deck where, you know,
Hmm, hmm,
your
hmm.
cantrips keep you alive by giving you little bits of life or fogging or whatever until you get to your big combo. So they're more like tempo cantrips, right? Or bounce cantrips can help with that, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
silvers tend to be like that. A lot of times they are just draw card. A lot of times you're just kind of cycling through for another shop. You're not liking your current shop. You want to try a different shop. You want to give me a new
Yep.
pack. I want to draft from a different pack, and put a
Mhm.
+1/+1 counter on my guy. Okay, cool. But a lot of times they do other things. Like you said, there might be
Yeah, yeah.
you might be trying to draft as many cards as you can because you have a scarecrow out, which has a quest that says draft 7 cards, right? So suddenly silvers are really high power at this precise moment.
Yeah.
So I might not have drafted a silver normally. I might have taken the Nessie out of the shop and gotten the big character, but because I have Scarecrow, silvers are way better now.
Yeah, anything to just get me more
Right.
drafts. It doesn't even matter what it does. I just want as many drafts as possible so I can finish this little quest and get a good prize from it. You can imagine in Magic, like there's a new card that came out recently, Honor, that's just a white mana, draw a card, put a counter on a creature. That's like a baseline useful thing to do. That's not that powerful, not that bad, put it in any limited deck. But if you have something that says like, oh, whenever any of your creatures that have counters on them gain a new ability, or whenever you target one of your creatures, something cool happens. You can take something kind of simple, the silvering process, and actually find a lot of instances where it becomes an interesting decision. And then the cooler one, though, is when you get the third copy and you get to go from silver to gold, because that also gives you an extra draft that is a treasure. That's not a unit.
And the thing about treasures, which are comparable in a lot of ways to artifacts and enchantments in Magic, they sit on the board and give you an effect, but they don't directly
Mhm.
contribute to combat. They don't have attack and blocking capabilities. Um, the thing about treasures is you can have as many of
Mhm.
those as you
Mhm.
want. You have that 5 character limit, but treasures are unlimited. You're trying to collect as many of those as you can in basically every game. If you're presented with a treasure, it's almost always going to be upside. You're not
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not missing out on something. You're not replacing one with another, right? So golds tend to be very powerful for that reason. The
yeah.
other thing of note is that Gold units also, if possible, if the card has an ability that can be doubled, a gold unit will do a doubled ability. So your card that says your creatures in front of me, Jill Sunshine, support, the creatures in front of me have +5/+0. If it's gold, it's +10/+0.
Yeah, how do you feel about the mixture of the treasure prize versus the ability doubling? Do you think the treasure is the majority of the reward, or do you think it's kind of split?
It's actually pretty evenly split in my mind, depending on the card. Like, there are definitely cards where the treasure is all that matters off the golden, or certainly the vast majority of what you're going for. And there's cards that goldening them makes them so much more powerful, like Goodie Bag is an example. Goodie Bag is a rare that when it dies, it summons a random common and gives that common stats equal to the Goodie Bag stats. And those stats are permanent. As we said earlier, all units are unique, but part of what makes that interesting is that all buffs are permanent across all instances and appearances of that card throughout the game. So if you summon the same thing twice, it'll keep carrying those stats over. So Goodie Bag's a really powerful card. The golden copy gives double its stats. And so the golden copy is so much better than the non-golden copy over the course of a game. It just those numbers add up so much faster. And usually if you're playing Goodie Bag, you try to get its stats up at least into the high double digits. And so the treasure from that goldening Goodie Bag, you don't care about the treasure half the time. You're just like, I want golden Goodie Bag. And so there's things obviously in the middle. Obviously things in the middle too, like Jill Sunshine from earlier is a great example of where gold guild.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah,
gold Jill Sunshine goes from +5 to +10, so it gets to stay on your board for like 2 extra turns usually when that happens. And the treasure's decent too, so it just kind of depends on the card.
Yeah. And the treasures, they're just like there are pools of units at every rarity. There's common units, uncommon, and units appear at their rarity.
Right.
The treasures are also locked to whatever the rarity of the unit is. So when you golden a common unit, you get 3 choices from, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 common treasures. If you golden a legendary unit, you get to pick from one of the legendary treasures, which are like way, 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 way better than the common.
Each rarity actually has kind of a bit of a. They do different things, I guess, is a good way of thinking about it. The common treasures can actually be very powerful, but the ones that are powerful tend to be powerful late in the game to make it interesting to take common treasures later in the game, right? You have a common treasure that's Mimic, or Lesser Mimic, which says, I become a copy of the next treasure you draft, which sounds ridiculously powerful, but if you think about it on turn 1, if you draft a common treasure that says the next treasure I copy, and that next treasure is a common treasure, you didn't really do much more powerful than get a common treasure.
Yeah.
They kind of scale across the game.
That's like a really great example in general. Copying becomes so much cooler and so much more fun the later in a game you are. That's true in Magic as well. I think that you have to copy it right now with that Lesser Mimic. Reflecting on that card, I basically never take it early. I want anything that gives me stats, anything that's going to help me survive early. Because when's my next treasure even going to be early on? It might be another couple turns. I might be, losing 3 fights in between.
So yeah, the treasures do get more powerful throughout the game, but they also get more powerful even within the rarities often, especially common. Legendary treasures, actually, interestingly enough, legendary treasures often are not the most powerful treasure you can be finding on a given turn. They tend to be very basic strength. Imagine a magic card that says your creatures have +10/+10.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a pretty good baseline legendary treasure in our game. It gives a bunch of stats, but it's just a bunch of stats.
Or like red creatures get +20/+20. Like some subsection get like a good buff.
It's really powerful in the moment. The moment you can get access to legendary treasures, that's a pretty powerful effect, but it scales off really quickly and doesn't automatically build to the ridiculous numbers. Whereas
once in a while you get one of those early and it rolls.
A lot of epic and rare treasures are actually more combo pieces. Like there's a rare treasure that says, it's called Mushroom Ring. It says your recruit abilities are farewell abilities. So imagine a magic artifact that said your come into play abilities are also leaves play abilities, right? And it's maybe not quite the exact same comparison, but it's that kind of card. It makes interesting combos by itself. It's not actually that useful, but it opens up some ridiculous potential that isn't just +10/+10.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting spot for them too. Now that I hadn't really thought of this, where you want like a rare treasure to potentially be kind of build shifting.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's like the last moment that you can like really meet. You're probably in flux. You had to get rid of all your early units already. You've got a couple things that you're building off of, and then you see one of those treasures, and you say like, "Can I shift to that? And if I can, I better take it right now, and it's going to rule." Or I can't shift to that. I better.
Right.
I'll save that for next game. I'll do that one later.
And that's kind of what I said earlier about how the different levels have kind of different identities, right? The common treasures tend to be either very tempo stat oriented or cards that scale with the scale of the game over time and don't necessarily give power on their own. And then uncommons tend to be more utilitarian or like come in the early build arounds. And then as you get into rare and epic, you get way more build arounds, and also just some basic stat treasures in every level, of course. But a lot of the really interesting build arounds are at epic and rare, and then legendary is just often just power. It's just raw power, and it's not even that powerful compared to what you can do with the epics and rares. And that's on purpose. That's an interesting there's an intentional game design thing there going on where, because of the way the draft pool works, when you hit legendary on turn 9 and for the rest of the game, the easiest treasure for you to collect is going to be legendary treasures, because legendaries are the highest saturation of cards in your pool. Because as we add cards to your pool, the higher rarities outnumber the lower rarities on purpose. We want you to see more stuff. We basically don't want you to get to legendary and see a bunch of commons and uncommons still. We want you to see more legendaries. We want you to have more fun, do the cool, powerful thing. So we skew the numbers.
That's different from a lot of auto battlers.
Right. No, absolutely. It's different on purpose. But because of that, we also don't want the easiest kind of treasure to find for the portion of the game that lasts the longest, because you often stay at legendary for a number of turns before the game ends. We don't want those treasures to be just straight down the best cards in the game. It can be stat treasures, because those can just tempo you into the point where you figure out these combos. We don't want your ridiculous combo. We don't want it to be correct to just take every legendary looking for treasures, right?
I kind of do that. Maybe I shouldn't be.
Absolutely. It works fine. Don't get me wrong. Often it's correct, especially if you just need a little bit of an extra boost. But a lot of times, by the time you're at legendary level, what you're actually actively looking for to make your game really sing, to make your combos come together, is a rare or an epic. And so a lot of times in those legendary shops, you're actually intentionally taking rares and epics to add silver rares and epics to your pool, which will then get you to gold rares and epics, which will then get you that combo treasure we were talking about earlier. You're looking for that mushroom ring or that parting gift, right?
Funny, yeah. I've got nothing going on, and I just want to see if I can survive this game is more like, I'm going to put 4 different legendaries that don't work together. Like, I'm just going to take as many of them as I can, and then hope to find a combo piece. And if I can't find a combo piece, maybe I'll at least get, I don't know what it's called, the moon that upgrades something's rarity by 1. True Love's Kiss. Because then I go into secret rare, which is something that's undraftable. And those cards are like very nutty and often like build around so strong that just like, get on my back, I'll carry you to victory.
Yep. Yeah, there's certainly nothing, inherently wrong with the draft every legendary strategy. It'll get you quite a bit of the ways down the road of fun games. And you'll still have access to the entire spectrum of fun possibilities, because you're still going to get those rare and epic treasures anyways. It's just from a strategic standpoint, it's an interesting intentional game design topic. I actually put a lot of, I don't necessarily go into the numbers or the details too much, but this goes back to that earlier conversation about how working in the code let me kind of do game design at a much more fundamental level. And I'm very proud of the way the pool in the game is designed from a numbers and a math perspective, because like I said, I just did that. Someday we were like, we need a pool of cards and we need cards to get stronger over time. And here's our 5 rarities. And the designers were very much kind of like what you were saying, like a lot of games have percentage charts, right? On this turn, you have this percentage chance of getting this rarity versus that rarity. And like the designers came to me and like, do you need me to write up these charts? And I'm like, hold on, let me try something. And so I went to the code and I coded up a pool system that's based on just ratios, right? Listen to me go into the math. There's 3 of every common, and then when you add uncommons, you add 4 of every uncommon, and then when you add the rares, you add 5 of every rare, and 6 of every epic, and 7 of every legendary. In addition to some other stuff where the cards you pass come out of the pool, which means stuff that you're not playing slowly diminishes and stuff you're playing slowly increases. And there's some other fiddly rules, but those are the basic rules.
Wow.
Some very simple math, and it gives you shops that are actually really well balanced across the course of a game.
I was in gentle hands this whole time, and I didn't know.
Yeah, well, we want you to have fun.
You're guiding me to having fun, and I had no idea.
Speaking of the pillars of game design, going back to, you only have 3 cards. How do we make those interesting decisions? We don't want to give you a shop of 3 commons on turn 6. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Nobody's having fun.
Oh my God. It's so true, but I hadn't thought about it. Yeah.
And there's no reason for us to mana screw you on purpose. You're still going to get mana screwed occasionally. and we talk about this.
Yeah, you might still see.
We talk about this all the time in the game. People are complain about parts of the game, and we talk about them as designers on the team, and we say, is it okay that 2% of the time this bad things happens, or 5% of the time I True Love's Kiss into a card that does nothing, or 5% of the time on turn 3 if I cast You Meet in a Tavern, I get Prince Charming, which takes a heart away from me and I feel bad about it.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, we're fine with that because nothing is remotely as common and nasty feeling as Mana Screw and Magic, and look how good of a game Magic still is, right? That doesn't mean that we don't want to minimize those experiences, but those experiences have to exist because the game has to have a spectrum of possibilities. If you can't ever miss, the game's not fun.
Yeah.
But if you never hit, the game's also never fun. And so we want to make you hit a lot. 50, 60, 70, 80% of the time, 90 even percent of the time. We just don't want you to hit 100% of the time. And we want there to be, moments, right? Like, oh my God, I didn't get Prince Charming. I need to cast this spell. I better not get Prince Charming. I need to, I need to TLK this, and it needs to be something good, and you hit and it feels great. And the occasional time you whiff and you're like, I'm still going to do it, but I know that risk is there, right? If there's no risk, it's not fun.
Every time I've cast that spell, I've already hardened my heart to the negative outcome. So I'm only it's neutral to upside only in terms of my mood.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to steel yourself for.
I took it into my own hands.
You got to steel yourself for the TLK into Long John Silver, and as long as you're ready for that.
It's funny how readily all of the like negative cases. I guess
I want anybody listening to this who understands Galaxy well enough to get these references. I want you to understand that we talk about these whammies. We call them whammies. We know about the whammies, and we actively like the whammies being in there as game designers because it's very important that the game have low points so that the high points feel that much sweeter. Our motto with Galaxy is just play again. It's a 10-minute game. That's part of the design is you crash and burn. You just hit play again and have fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's very quick because a thing we haven't stated, but that is really interesting about the game is that your opponents are, actually I might be saying this incorrect, so please correct me. Your opponents are sort of saved crews of other people on the internet, but aren't playing against you currently.
Yes, correct. It's called asynchronous play. Your lobby has 5 other players in it. They're real players, but they're not in real time. It is a recording, like a ghost in Mario Kart, for example. It's a recording of something they did in the recent past. We store runs up to 8 hours.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's caches, so you might play against somebody from more than 8 hours ago. But generally speaking, you're playing against runs from about 8 hours ago of real people who played that game moments before you, and that was what their outcome was for each individual turn when you face them.
Yeah. Each turn is saved.
Correct.
And then it does something must do something after that person won the game, but you're still in the game, and it just auto.
Yeah, the board will keep growing. If they actually won the game, it's not nearly as complicated as you think it might have to be for it to feel really good. And at the same time, we have plans to make it much more realistic over time and add a bit more.
So
if you think about it, I don't want to go into too much detail, but you got to imagine, let's say you have a card on your board that says, let's go back to Anne Bunny. It's a 6/6 that says when I hunt, I get +6/+6. And what that means is if Anne Bunny attacks and knocks out or kills the defender, If it kills the defender on its attack, it gets +6/+6 permanently. That builds across turns. So if you're playing the game and your Anne Bunny hunts 3 times in a row and goes from 6/6 all the way up to 36/36 or whatever, that's what my game is going to see. Whichever turn I face you on, Anne Bunny is going to be whatever size you managed to get it to on your game, which is fine. But if I face you and you don't hunt against me, and then I face you later and it grew as if it did hunt against me, that is technically kind of like a violation of space-time, continuum, right? Like, what happened here? How did you get those stats? You don't deserve those stats. And that's not really a huge drawback. I want to be super clear. It really isn't. It does actually play a lot like a real game 100%. Against real players who you just don't have timers, which is great, by the way. You don't have to ever wait for anybody. Nobody's ever waiting on you. The game plays at exactly your own pace.
Yep.
You can pause the game. You can put it down for 20 minutes and come back to it. It's great. Async is amazing. It's one of the most... I wish more games had async, and I plan on making way more games with async modes.
It does roll.
But I would like it someday to make it such that if you see Anne Bunny not hunt against me, it didn't gain 6/6. And I have ways of making that happen, but that's going to come at some point in the future.
That's what I was going to say. Like, when I was first talking about this, I'm like, Alexis has already thought about this problem thoroughly.
Oh, yeah,
He's going to have way more information than me.
This goes back to the whole engineer plus game designer. I have put a ton of thought into what's actually possible, and I'm super excited to implement it at some point.
Yeah. I guess another piece to that was relevant to, the async play, but I also want to try to think about, this is getting to the edge of what you'd ever do with Magic, but permanent changes. Like, if you imagine printing out a bunch of cards and then over the course of a draft or something, cards are actually getting like materially better for their future games.
Oh, I've done this. Oh, I'm excited.
Okay. Give me your info. I want everything.
No, so I played... There was a cube. So I'm sure you're familiar with Legacy games, right? Legacy, Pandemic, Legacy.
Yeah.
Being the most obvious one. Magic designer friend of mine, Greg Marks, had a Legacy cube. So every time we played it, whenever you won a match or maybe even just a game, you got to upgrade a card in some way, or there was ways you could draft upgrades. There was lots of different ways you could upgrade cards. And so Lightning Bolt in the second draft might be different than Lightning Bolt in the first draft was. And it's the same card. You just take the card out and either write on the sleeve or put stickers on the sleeve and then put the sleeve back in the outer sleeve, right? You have the double sleeve thing going on. And you could totally do that a more game-centric way. You could absolutely have a set of rules with Magic where you said, giant growth means you take the card out of the sticker, you write +3/+3, and you stick it back in. And then if I draw this card in the next game, it's already +3/+3. It's just bigger.
I just feel like I'd be laughing nonstop playing that game. If I just ripped my card and it already had a giant growth sticker on it,
It certainly would be ridiculous, right? It would only really make sense in that earlier variation we're talking about where, the size of numbers doesn't matter so much as my numbers versus your numbers, and you're just losing hearts, right? So they all kind of tie together, as you can kind of see.
We've talked about, we've had on the pod a couple times, sticker cubes where, kind of like you're talking about, maybe you get 3 stickers that you apply to your deck, or a sticker per win or something like that. But we don't really get to experiment that much in Magic with stat boost changing kind of stuff, or tweaking the balance of numbers in Magic is so tight and is so related to life totals. Yeah.
You wouldn't want to have a Legacy cube or a sticker cube where, you allowed me to make Isamaru a 10/10. That's just not fun. Nobody's enjoying that game.
Yeah.
Even the winner's probably not really enjoying the game. They're going to feel kind of embarrassed.
Yeah, oh, well, I got to do this to you. All right. Well,
yeah.
The scoop.
But in a version of Magic where everybody's doing that and the goal of the game is just to hit your opponent 3 times with anything, it's pretty fair again.
Or multiplayer, got a little frontier justice. I think a thing that's worth conveying about Galaxy is those permanent changes happen kind of whether or not the unit is the character is currently in your crew, which is, I think, a very joyous thing whenever I notice it.
Right.
I randomly summoned a unit and then that random unit got buffed. And then I saw that unit later in the shop and it's still buffed. I'm wait, what? Or when units die and summon tokens and those tokens get buffed, those those tokens are buffed when they get summoned by that unit again, and that's actually part of the strategy of some of the factions. It's just more of the joy of the game. Like, just the numbers go big. It really taps into something for me, I guess.
The permanence of buffs, the natural snowballing of numbers in this game over the course of the game to get bigger and bigger, is kind of inherent in like 3 or 4 different major pieces of the design. And one of the ones we haven't talked about is actually slot buffs. So it's interesting to note. So your units, you have your maximum of 5 units, and those units go in an arrangement on your board. There's 3 units in front, 2 units in back. And each of those slots can, in and of itself, have essentially counters placed on it. You can have your front slot. One of the spells in the game says give your front slots +1/+1. So it's like putting a counter. It'd be like putting a counter in Magic on your first 3 creatures. But if those creatures die, those counters just kind of stay there and play, and you can put new characters there. And so numbers get very big in other ways because the units don't take the numbers with them. They stay on the board, which means that they get to build up over the course of a game.
The kind of slot buff is almost like a kind of equipment or something in Magic, like a transferable buff that allows me to like not be too invested in my early units, still be building a late game advantage, but also still have good numbers in the meantime.
Yep, slot buffs are a lot like equipments or Anthem effects.
After you finish drafting, you can rearrange your units, so you can kind of pick where they are. Maybe you want some of them early so that they'll attack sooner, but you can also figure out where you want to put your slot buff such that like, I'm going to move this unit. This unit used to be in this spot, but it's actually better with the buff, so I'm going to, swap these two, and that's like a satisfying thing to do, I guess.
We haven't really talked about positioning. It's kind of another layer of that whole, how do you pick from 3 interesting? Well, there's a whole sub game around positioning. Imagine in Magic, your battlefield was, again, only 5 characters at any given time, but which character was on the left mattered versus which character on the right. Maybe if you've played Hearthstone Battlegrounds, you understand what I'm talking about, because that also has a very similar thing where your first character attacks first. But the slots all have there's a ton of nuance to what character goes in which slot, and you can arrange them anytime you want to change what effects are doing what at any given moment.
It matters a lot. Like it's a huge part of the game. It's not because if it was just sort of a horizontal line of like 5 units, like, and then random units attacked random other units, you wouldn't have the same control. Like, I really want my Death Toucher to attack either like right at the beginning or after everything else is dead. My opponent's only living unit is a giant unit. Probably the last major thing, or at least from in my mind, there's probably 1,000 in your mind, but the last major thing about the game are spells. So you're given a choice of 3 units to take, and then after the first couple turns, a 4th slot unlocks, a 4th shop slot unlocks. That's a spell, and a spell isn't a unit, and it's maybe like half the spells apply buffs to units. So it might be, hey, give this thing 4 power permanently. Like you said, give the front row all +1/+1. Upgrade this unit to a random unit of a higher tier. Or spells that are like going to randomly affect an enemy unit in the next battle. In the next battle, hit a random unit with lightning. Make a random unit have only 1 toughness, stuff like that.
That spell is very different from characters and serves a lot of very important like strategic game design purposes. One of those is there's always something you can do, almost always something you can do to make your board at least a little bit better, even if you don't want any of the characters, right? So going back to that, what if you get 3 commons on turn 7? Well, it can happen. It shouldn't happen very often, but it can. So the spell kind of makes you not feel like you got literally nothing that turn, right? And it provides that option at a very wide range of skill levels, where the more casual you are, the more casually oriented you are, the more you're focused on, I only want to take pirates and build the pirate build. Those spells give a really nice quick, snappy, like, oh, I don't like this option, I'm just going to take a spell. And I feel like I'm still doing something. I'm making my board better.
Yeah.
But they're also just like in Magic, like spells in Magic, in the sense that it's an opportunity for you to do something that doesn't necessarily give you a permanent resource in the form of a character or a treasure, but create some sort of effect immediately that might be way more powerful than getting a character or treasure would be, or might just be, I don't want to replace any of my characters, like I said earlier, so I'm just going to do something I'm going to do something that gives me some tempo. I'm going to cast a lightning bolt to take out my opponent's character so that I don't lose a heart here, so that maybe next turn I'll find a character that's better. I live an extra turn that way, right? So they give you a very different strategic option that way.
Yeah. And they're another hook, right? Like, oh, now I can have an effect where
it's like magic.
All your spells deal, give more stats. All your whenever the next time you cast a spell, you cast that spell twice, that kind of stuff.
It turns out spells are actually a pretty important focus of our Candylar set, which is coming out sometime in October.
Ooh.
There is
all right.
One of the core mechanics, the candy mechanic, is essentially self-boosting spells. So every single spell in Candylar. So as of the Candylar release, you will be able to access a whole new set of spells in the pool for Galaxy, and all of those spells are candy spells, and all of those spells have a mechanic called Sweeten. What Sweeten does is says all of your future candy spells are one bigger. So your first candy spell, you might cast a spell called Oh Fudge, which says give a slot +1/+1 and then sweeten your candy. Well, the next time you cast Oh Fudge, it's actually +2/+2 and sweeten your candy, and then +3/+3 and sweeten your candy, and so on and so forth. And so there's a lot of different candy spells that have numbers on them, as well as candy characters who have numbers on them. This candy mechanic is kind of this inherent steamrolling, snowballing kind of mechanic where it's obviously very linear in that in a magic sense, right? You want the more candy you have, the more candy you want, generally speaking. But it has a very strong focus on spells that in a way that makes some of those spells in the late game be really powerful plays that are way better than taking a character. So suddenly spells have a new focus, or casting multiple spells has a much different focus in this set.
Yeah. Right? I feel like I haven't used spells, at least the stat buff spells, that often. I feel like I either need to get like mages going to make the spells strong enough to be worth casting. But here it's a little bit more like, no, the spells themselves are a strategy, even independent of mages, even independent of a faction.
Yep. It starts mattering when you start looking at some of the candy characters. One of the more basic versions of this, there's an uncommon collectible card called Lemonhead. And it's just a 1/1, which is a very small card for an uncommon. Uncommon stats tend to be in the 3/3/4/4 range. And it says, each fight give me +1/+1. So even after several fights, it's just barely getting up to the normal stats of an uncommon, right? But if you've sweetened your candy a couple times, now it's give me +3/+3 or +4/+4. And now suddenly you've got something that rivals Anne Bunny and just stays on your board for 5 turns while you do other things.
Nothing could ever replace Anne Bunny in my heart.
That's fair. That's fair.
Just kidding. Sorry.
No, I respect that. So yeah, you've got a mechanic that's essentially very much says if you play some of this, play some more of this, and then play some more of this, and then while you're at it, play some more of this. But it doesn't always work that way, so you tend to kind of cross in and out during the course of a game. So it does actually.
Do I even get the opportunity to do more of this? Like, I might want to be candy, or I don't know how the cards mix in, but I might want to be more candy, but I don't see the candy cards. Do I jump ship back to pirates because I haven't seen quite enough?
Or hopefully in this case you have candy pirates, like, the Candy Cane Crook, which is another one we've got here. The Candy Cane Crook is an uncommon that says hunt, sweeten your candy. So you take that card and if it's working out, great. But if it's not working out, you still got a pirate. So maybe you can shift into pirates.
Okay. Yeah, there's some sort of like cross synergy cards, and then plenty of cards that are just only in their one synergy.
Right.
And that's
I would say that the vast majority of the characters that are candy are going to be crossover, just if for no other reason than they have factions on them and interact with other cards in ways that guarantee that you have other ways of making those cards good. Whereas the spells tend to be kind of all or nothing kind of effects. Like they tend to be really good if you've been in candy for a while or have had time to build it up over time. But if you don't cast Oh Fudge until turn 7, and that's your first candy spell, you probably aren't excited about it, and it's probably never going to be good. You stay out of candy at that point.
You're just going to have to dodge that for the rest of the game. Have you talked about how the candy spells appear in the game? Or I don't know if that's public or not. I'm curious. I don't really know.
One of the things Galaxy has, it's a drafting game, but it has deck building. We didn't really talk about this, but there's a kind of a common pool of cards, a shared pool, a neutral pool, if you will, with I don't know, 100 something cards in it that are always in the game. At every game you play, these 100 cards have a chance of showing up. You also bring it's almost like bringing your own pack to a draft where you bring
Ooh, yeah, a little chaos draft.
right?
Yeah.
You bring 12 cards in the form of a deck to your draft, and those 12 cards also get mixed into the pool. So your game is going to be 100-ish cards that are the same all the time, and 12 cards that you get to pick. We have features to make that really easy for people who don't care about deck building. We have a bunch of starter decks and theme decks and automated decks that help you, access all the different interesting gameplay strategies that you would have access to from these cards. So you don't have to think too hard about this if you don't want to. But the gist of it is every game is going to be just a little bit different based on what you bring to the table. And so the vast majority of candy characters are collectible cards. They're cards you have to intentionally put in your deck. And if you have one or more candy cards in your deck, you get candy spells. If you don't have any candy cards in your deck, you don't get candy spells. You can opt in and out of that experience, and you don't get stuck with a bunch of candy spells if you're not playing any candy cards that can't really take advantage of them. Because candy spells are fine on their own, but they really start to shine with even just a single candy character, right? A single lemon head makes a big difference to get you to that late game where the candy really starts shining with, Chubby Cheap or some other card that's, really takes advantage of those candy buffs at Legendary. And then, of course, it gets really interesting when you start playing the cards that turn other cards into candy cards. Hint, hint.
Oh, no. Ooh, exciting. Yeah, so I guess that it takes over the spell space and gives like a new kind of component to the way spells work and your expectation for spells. Does feel pretty cool and is more than just like an extra faction of creatures to run into. Yeah. And that you're kind of flipping in and out of it. Oh, I've played enough candy, I'll just do a no candy deck and I could just go back to kind of more classic gameplay.
To be clear, Candylar will also have quite a large number of both collectible and shared pool cards that have nothing to do with candy and give you all sorts of other new strategies. And one of the things we've been trying to do with Set 2 is explore ways to make deck building more impactful and interesting and make ways to make it so that we can bring you an even wider variety of experiences through decks. Again, going back to that theme deck concept, we're totally happy if when you load up the game, you select one of the pre-constructed decks that we've already made for you. We love that. We try to give you all the different experiences, whether you want to be mages or pirates or candy or whatever. You're going to have all those options to you over the course of several games just from picking theme decks. We want to make those decks bring as wide a variety of experience as possible so we have the largest amount of appeal. We have the largest variety of content. We want you to enjoy the game like Magic, right? Magic has so many infinite possibilities, and we're trying to kind of recreate that feel in a bite-sized package, right? One of Matthew Place's go-to analogies is, I don't know when you started playing Magic, but a lot of us started playing Magic on the team back in Revised or even Unlimited.
That's me, I'm old.
Back then, you had a Shivan Dragon, and that was really cool. And you were the only person who had a Shivan Dragon. And, deck building was just a kind of the Wild West, and discovering cards and interactions just happened all the time. And you were constantly learning new things by playing the game rather than going on the internet and reading a spoiler and following Pro Tour coverage. And now we all know what the best 10 cards are and nothing else matters. And we're trying to recreate that first portion of the experience to the best of our abilities. So that's what the theme decks are there for. We want to be able to make it so that every captain and every theme deck brings you just a slightly different experience. You get to play some new game you haven't tried yet, essentially, without being spoiled by, always playing the same best deck every time, right?
Yeah. The deck building is kind of interesting because it doesn't dominate, the deck that you build doesn't really dominate the experience that you have with that captain. I guess maybe a way to relate it to Magic is if you did a commander draft, but you got to pick your commander and then you got to pick 6 cards that went in your pool.
Right.
It's not so much that your game is sort of dictated for you, but it is enough that you're picking your 6 cards based on the other cards that are in the shared pool. you can take the same commander and sort of shift the focus of the cards that you bring in to say, like, I want to be all about pirates. I want to be all about fairies. Because I think these are the two different ways that I could like build this deck. You're kind of maximizing the commander while also being conscious of the majority of your cards are going to come from the shared pool.
Generally speaking, you should expect to see a decent chunk of your deck throughout the course of the game, but you can't rely on it. Absolutely not. You might put Blackbeard and Hercules which are it's a very powerful combo of two legendaries, but you might not see either of them, or you might only see one of them, so you don't get to do the combo, and you just, falter a bit. And, the deck's going to definitely change your experience, and you can play towards it or just play the game as it comes to you. Either way works fine. But one of the things we do want to be able to do is over time make sure that those decks do bring as much of a variety of experience as possible. And so one of the things we did with Candylar was we figured out a way to make the deck building affect your spell pool. You don't want to make it so you can add spells to your deck. That just complicates things too much. It's just 12 characters. Very simple. We like keeping things simple. We don't want to complicate the rules. But this lets you bring spells in. The other major mechanic that Candylar's introducing, Candylar has a mechanic called Treasure Find, which when this card finds a treasure for whatever reason, whether it's a quest or goldening it or whatever, this is the treasure I'm going to find. And it's always a unique treasure that you can't get any other way. So one of the cards I've already spoiled, I spoiled this on the dev stream the other day. By the way, you should come watch our dev streams on Twitch. It's Play Galaxy Game is the screen name, is our Twitch screen name for the official Once Upon a Galaxy dev stream. I have a few other people that I'd recommend, but I would specifically recommend Yuckmouth, Yukmouth. He's also on our team. He's one of the more well-known Galaxy streamers, but he's also part of our team. So he's an official representative of the game. You can ask him questions. You can talk about the game on stream, and he loves it. Sorry, one of the cards we already spoiled is a card called Lance a Little, which is a simple common. It's a 2/2 common, and it has a quest. And so in this game, a quest is essentially do a thing, and if you do the thing right, you will get a treasure. And normally that treasure is random. Normally, like Jealous Stepsister says, if I deal 6 damage in a single fight, you completed my quest. And the quest would just give you a selection of 3 common treasures. Lance a Little says, quest, during a fight, I have at least 8 attack. So you trigger his quest by getting him up from a 2/2 up to as high as an 8 something. And then the treasure he finds, he says, treasure find Little Lance. And so Little Lance is a treasure that says each fight give all your slots +1 attack. So it's actually pretty good. Yes, it's actually a really good card. Good. But if you get Lance a Little up, if you put Lance a Little in your deck, it's a collectible card. So you have to choose to play this card or play a theme deck with this card in it. And you get it up to an 8 on its attack, you are always going to get a Little Lance. You'll also get a Little Lance if you golden it naturally by just finding the silver and the golden.
Oh, funny. Yeah, because
every single treasure find card has a quest, but that's not necessarily always going to be true. It's a really good mechanic. It's an evergreen mechanic. Sometimes you make a mechanic and you're like, I know this is evergreen.
I can't reserve this. Yeah.
So you put this card in your deck, and you know that your deck is bringing you a much higher chance of buffing all your slots, which is a thing you can play around, a thing you can design your deck around. You can design your deck around the idea that you're going to have a higher chance of having your slots be buffed, right?
Yeah. You have this sort of like baseline thing of the treasures that I find often help nudge me towards a build, but then you also want to encourage deck building and thoughtful deck building and a variety in deck building. So you want to instead say, hey, some of those treasures are still going to be random, but your build is not 100% locked in just because you made a certain deck. But you also can guarantee that some treasure that you can build towards, that you can know, is the Lance a Little's a common or?
Right, that's correct.
You're really likely to see that common at some point if you really want that effect. And I don't know what the cards are, but you might have like card that says like, I benefit double from slot buff effects or something like that. And now I want to play that card. Or I want to put this card in a deck that like cares about slot buffs.
But of course it goes back to the earlier conversation where you're not guaranteed to see it. Like you put Lance a Little in your deck, maybe you see it 50% of all games, right? Yeah. And so you have to be able to play the game without that. You can't rely on it. But it definitely lets you build in combos that you are much more likely to see, because it's a draft game, right? It's like saying you want to play, a combo deck in Magic, but you have to draft the pieces first. You might not get it all the time, right?
I think the other component to the deck building is that it also can let you kind of skew. You can choose the cards that go in your deck to be like
Right.
early common cards or late legendary cards. And it's
Right.
which
Exactly.
half of the
Exactly.
pool am I trying to dilute? You know what I mean? Are the shared cards actually totally fine for this hero? Like they're like synergistic. Like there's one that cares about like heroes and villains, and there are a lot of here, at least in my opinion, I don't know. There are a lot of heroes and villains early that are already good enough for that guy. So I'm going to try to stuff my deck
Right.
with good heroes and villains that are later in the curve,
Right.
that are going to be payoffs for me.
And this is an interesting time to point out that because of the way the shop math works, commons in particular have a very high burden if you're a competitive player, and so collectible commons, kind of similar to like or kind of like similar to the lightning bolt of Magic, right? Collectible commons can be very powerful. So Lance a Little is a pretty good example of this. Like if you pull off Lance a Little Quest, which is pretty easy to pull off if you want to,
Yeah, I was wondering that.
it's one of those cards where if you want to make Lance a Little have 8 power or 8 attack, you're going to get there. If you want to get there, you're going to get there. How much are you willing to commit to that? How many spells and supports and slot buffs are you going to do to get there? Is you're putting resources into it, but you're going to get there if you really want to. But putting a common in your deck actually has a pretty high cost in this game because of how silvers and golds work. Every common dilutes your pool by something like 5% at the beginning of the game. So if you're seeing 5% less silvers because there's an extra card and 5% less golds early on, like that's a big deal. That's actually, we're not talking about fetch land thinning numbers. We're talking about real probabilistic numbers that actually matter.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's really cool. And I guess I'd maybe picked up that vibe accidentally, but never. Which is actually maybe what you want in a game, is that the players figure it out without even thinking
Absolutely.
about it.
And this was actually this is a great example of where I designed the pool math, and then later on players started telling me things that players started talking about strategy based on what I had told them about the pool and how it worked, and they're like, yeah, actually that's a really good way of thinking about it, and that's good strategy. One of my favorite moments, one of the things that warms my heart as a game designer, is when people are playing your game and they describe the game back to you better than you understood it in some way. It never happens. Like, you don't usually get somebody who can describe like the whole game back to you better, but there's always something that someone comes back and says,
Yeah, sure.
here's a strategic observation I had, and you're like, you're just right. Like, I never even thought about it that way. I don't know if it's actually possible to design the game such that commons don't dilute in that way because of how silvers and golds work, but I had never thought about it until someone pointed out, right? How commons have a very high bar to cross. That
I guess it's kind of nice also that at least it sounds like what you're saying is that the collectible commons, the deck building commons, get to be a little juiced, because that's just fun. Like I lock a new thing. Yeah.
Like one of the we've got a card called Mecha Man, which is a 2/1 2/1 with Hunt. Give me +1, give my slot +1/+0, and then when I die, summon a random toy. And this card is like really, really good. It's really good, but it's not actually above the line because it's an uncommon, and uncommons have a really high bar to clear to put them in your deck.
That is fun. Like, I think the feeling that like I'm bringing 12 great cards that are better than,
That's the other thing.
that I think are better than the cards that are. That
We
are
want people to be
pool.
looking at these collectible cards and go, I want to own these cards. I want to put them in decks. So we're, incentivized to juice all of them, and we can juice all of them. There's no, and we're allowed to, right?
And you're allowed to. Yeah, I think that's the cool part. Yeah.
Because you can only bring 12, we can't do too much damage with overpowered cards. Like, worst case scenario, we're happy to nerf stuff all the time too, right? Like every patch, we find something to tweak.
Alrighty. Anything else about the game? I think we covered a lot of stuff here. I absolutely loved.
Yeah. Well,
both learning your perspective. Yeah. Good.
I've been trying to build into this, but speaking of treasure find, I wanted to talk about one more card here. There's a card in Candylar that this is an exclusive spoiler.
Oh.
Nobody has heard about this card. Will have heard about this card until now. And it kind of ties together a lot of the stuff we've talked about, which I think is great. So it's a collectible card. It's called Netherbinder. It's a dragon. It's a rare, and it's an 8/8.
Middle of the game. It's kind of big for
pretty reasonably sized for that stage of the game. And it has Treasure Hoard 1, which is an ability that we haven't really talked about that basically says I get +1/+1 for every treasure you have. So it's like most dragons, it will increase naturally over the time. And it's got a quest and treasure find like we were just talking about. So this guy's quest is I see 4 of my neighbors get KO'd. And so it's got a positioning puzzle. Where do you put it on the board such that it's going to over time see the most things die, right? You put it in.
What's a neighbor?
A neighbor is to the left or right. So the board.
Oh, okay.
Board is 1, 2, 3 in the front and 4, 5 in the back, and offset diagonally. But neighbor only includes left and right. So the most obvious place to put this character to maximize the odds that it sees something get knocked out is going to be slot 2 because it has a slot to the left and a slot to the right.
Yeah.
But you might want to put it in slot 3 because of how attack order works. That maximizes the chance that the slot 2 will die, and your slot 1, might be big and it might not die, right? You might have a really big thing in slot 1 that's never going to die. Or you might want to put it.
Yeah, typically.
It usually goes in slot 2, but occasionally you're going to want it in slot 4 or 5. Occasionally you might even want it in slot 1 if it's really, really big and your slot 2 is going to die. Or you might have a bunch of tokens and a bunch of other summons going on so that some slots have multiple things die. So there's a few different ways to maximize the value here. So once you complete that quest, it has treasure find for a card called Dragon's Jewel. Now, the epitome of a dragon card. So this card is designed for you people who love dragons and love your dragon and treasure decks, and you want to put dragons and treasures on the board and nothing else. So Dragon's Jewel says that your treasures count double for Treasure Hoard, and then it says that treasures you find from dragons are 1 rarity higher. So you get this Dragon's Jewel out, and then you golden your epic dragon and you get a legendary treasure instead, or you golden your legendary dragon, or you finish a quest on your legendary dragon and you get a secret rare treasure. So you get some of those real powerful effects.
Secret.
And of course, all those treasures you're going to find are going to give you extra treasure hoard out of them. So this kind of pulls together a lot of different stuff that is kind of unique to our game, but you could probably translate a lot of this to Magic. I don't know how you would do treasures you find from dragons or 1 rarity higher in Magic. That's
yeah, dude, we're pretty far from doing that. Like your booster packs have more foils in them.
right? That'd be pretty cool. I mean, you could. This is where I get into how can you adjust the RNG of Magic? Because one of the things about Galaxy is you're like I said, you're trying to get lucky. You're trying to bump the RNG in a direction.
Yeah.
And in Magic, you could have search your deck for 3 commons and remove them, right? You could have or search your deck for 5 cards and remove them, or search your deck for all red cards and remove them, or you could have you've got cards like Cascade that look for a certain type of card off the top, but you could have variations that are like Cascade, but you can't hit 1-drops, so it's better than just normal Cascade, right? As if that's necessary. But imagine a card that said your Cascades can't hit 1-drops. That would be kind of in the same bucket of treasures you find from dragons or 1 rarity higher.
Okay. I'd started to imagine this world where we have a digital deck that the composition shifts according to the kind of algorithms you're talking about, where I'm less likely to draw land as the game goes on. I'm less likely to draw XYZ as the game goes on. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And then this card could just amplify that. You never see this, Netherbinder. Is there a flavor behind this? It looks like there are little ghost dragons flying around it. It's like a big Draco Lich.
Yeah, I don't know that this one necessarily has any specific card or concept that is trying to call out from a lot of our cards are very much like callbacks or riffs or parodies or satire or puns.
Yeah, you got some real. I think I saw a Goku bird parody go by. Gokateel or something, is it?
Gokatu or Gakatu, depending on how you pronounce it. A combination of Goku and a cockatiel, and it's
yeah.
He's just going Super Saiyan. Yeah.
He's just going Super Saiyan. He's got golden cockatoo hair. Yeah.
We do pride ourselves on our humor. We have fun naming the cards and concepting the cards. Yeah, Netherbinder is definitely what you would expect a spirit lich dragon type character to look like. It's got a skeleton with it's an animated skeleton dragon or something. I don't know what it is. It looks really cool though, and it's got a cool name. It's called Netherbinder, and it finds you Dragon's Jewel, and it's a dragon villain. It's just a cool, like, it's very D&D, very classic fantasy looking thing.
You need some straight characters to go along with the
absolutely.
goofballs. Like I think the one that just like boggled me when I first saw it is Despicable Smee, who is like Despicable Me and also is like minion colored. Like what am I looking at?
I
so funny.
That is one of the cards that I personally named, and it's one of my proudest.
Oh, okay.
Coming up with that. Well, it was originally just Smee. It was a reference to Smee from Peter Pan.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Oh, so this is like a double reference, like our Gogateel.
Yeah. So it's Despicable Me and Shmee. All of our art is amazing, by the way. If you're into,
yeah, the art is so cool.
If you give the game a check it out, like just zoom in on the art. This is all real art by real human artists, and we pay a lot of attention to this stuff and try to get lots of cool details into the art.
It pays off. It's just so cool. Yeah, well, this Netherbinder seems really fun. Kind of a dreamy card. Like I need to set it up. I need to be a little nervous for a turn or two, but then it goes off, and now I'm hitting the ramp at that point. Like once I've got both of these effects off this Nether Jewel, I'm just slamming every dragon I can find. I'm just getting like, you added like a new button so you can, if you have too many treasures, you can now see all your treasures better. I appreciate that.
The dragon button. Yeah, Netherbinder is very much kind of like a glue piece that like lets you transition your early game combos into your late game combos, right? It turns your early game summons build into a late game dragons build that is just supercharged.
Yeah. Get more use of the Jack in the Box. That's like the summon that everyone uses. Yeah.
Or Mecha Man.
I put that slot 1, I put the dragon slot 2, and then I get 2 KOs like right at the beginning of the fight, and I'm halfway to my quest. Yeah.
All right. That's Candylar. Candy and treasure find and dragons.
Yeah, this was great. Candylar. I'm looking forward to it now. I'm getting fully hyped. Alrighty. I think that's probably it for Galaxy for today. Is that fair to say?
I mean, it's never enough, but yes, I think we're good. I think we're good talking about it one night.
Hey, anytime. Before we get out of here, just want to tell people about some of the events that are going on. The main one of which is our monthly design challenge. For October, we're going to have Rockstober, kind of Shards of Alara style. Design a rhino that would fit in a graveyard set. We got rhinos, we got rocks, we got October, we got a little spooky. Design some sort of rhino. It could have a graveyard ability or just make sense, like reanimate from the graveyard, something like that. Were you a Rocks fan? Did you play much Alara?
I worked on Alara.
Okay.
No, I was on the Shards of Alara team, and I was on the Alara Reborn. That's what it was.
Okay.
Alara Reborn.
All right. If people are thinking they're trying to get their ideas started on Rocks, what is Rocks to you?
I mean, Rocks to me is life gain and lifelink. Like that's what I think of when I think of Rocks is, which maybe is just completely wrong, but like I think of the.
Oh, okay.
There's just a lot. Honestly, a lot of the elephants have something to do with life gain. It's actually not.
Hey,
if you think about it.
All right. We also give people some bonus points. So one of them is Roxanne. Roxanne. You don't have to put on the red light. The bonus point here is you can mention red as a color, but not red mana. So give us some weird reason why we're mentioning red on the card. These bonus points are kooky sometimes.
What if I want to do Roxanne Bunny?
Oh, Roxanne Bunny. Okay, there we go. Oh, I love it. I think it's my favorite card. I don't know why. It's just really solid. Every time I play it, I feel like I just need one other effect to make that card. Yeah, give me Roxanne Bunny. And then for Kingdom Hearts fans, we've got Roxas. The name of your card is some sort of anagram, or maybe an anagram with an extra X in it. Kingdom Hearts style. You ever play those games? You ever play any RPGs, stuff like that?
Oh, it's been forever. I've played I played a little bit of Kingdom Hearts 1 when it first came out. Again, dating myself. It's been a while. Yeah.
The like really edgy twist is that a bunch of bad guys that all have X in their name, and their names are all anagrams of the main characters. So Sora, Sora, anagrams to Roxas, Roxas, because it's Sora with X, so it's like evil Sora, right?
That's deep.
So give us one of those. Make Juliet really happy by putting by giving us your best Roxas, and that'll be due October 31st. If you want to get that card in for us to review on the pod. By the time this goes up, it will be Moxtober, so we got even more Tober puns. This is a prompt a day, just like chill out, submit cards, look at the prompt for that day. Oh, day 1 is rabbit, give us your rabbit card. Day 4 is quartet, give us your quartet card. This is fully open-ended. People just drop their cards in, give feedback to each other, join the emoji squad, and just like scroll. If you're listening to this, jump on the Discord. Encourage everyone from October, because it's just about just making cool cards and showing your cool cards to everybody else. And I think that'll be about it for the podcast for the week. Hop on the Discord where all the action is. Thanks again so much for coming on, Alexis. This was an awesome episode. I had so much fun.
Thanks for having me, and I'd love it if you would give my game a look. It's called Once Upon a Galaxy. You can get it on Android and iOS app stores, as well as on Steam. It's free to play. You can also just go to galaxy.fun, our website, and get it from there. So if you like drafting and cool combos, give it a try. You might like it.
Oh, yeah. This is an easy pickup for any Magic player, I would say. It's just so
legitimately
fun.
Was designed to, just like Magic was designed to be the thing you play in between rounds of D&D or other convention games. Once Upon a Galaxy was designed to be the game you play between rounds of EDH.
Yeah. So check out Galaxy. Candelar is coming out soon too. Looking forward to that now. Sweetening my spells, casting a lot of spells. If people want to talk to you, you've been on the Beacon Discord, but you've got your own Discord for your own game there.
Yeah, feel free to. Yeah, we have an active Discord. The game has a strong community. So if you start up Once Upon a Galaxy or go to our website, you can find a link to our Discord and come on and chat us there. Like I said, we have streams, Yuckmouth, as well as our own Play Galaxy game stream. We stream every Tuesday. Yuckmouth streams every weekday at 9:30 Eastern in the morning. Love to talk about the game, but feel free to just pop in and say hi. I'm often hanging out there. You can also find me on Blue Sky as at alexisjanson.com.
Oh, .com. Oh, you got a cool name.
Oh, yeah. I'm at alexisjanson.com, and my nickname on most social media these days is Drajon, Drajjon. Feel free to find me wherever you can find awesome people and give me a holler and say hi.
All right. And I want to give one bonus shout out to Wobbles, who made this episode happen.
Oh, yes.
made this
Thank you so much, Wobbles. You are connective tissue that makes this industry go awesome. Go forward.
Right. Honk, honk.
Honk, honk.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Feel free to use that wherever you want to.
I like this, yeah. Well, whenever anyone mentions Wobbles, we'll splice that in.